Welcome to the Ben Buzz. I'm Benny King, and we have a really great slate of college football games on the horizon. Now, maybe it won't rival the best week, which is probably week 4 or 5. I can't remember exactly, but we've had some really great weeks of college football throughout, and I'm really excited for this week because it really could be a great one, and it's really going to be exciting to see how many of these games end up being competitive, how many upsets we end up seeing, as we see every week, and we'll see how it ends up kind of impacting the AP Top 25 as well as my Top 25, things like that. Very interesting, and there's a lot of ranked matchups. We're still really figuring out who the best teams are, who's the pretenders, who's the real ones, and I think we're starting to figure out the top end, but in terms of the bottom end of the top 25, it really is still kind of in the air and kind of out in the open. So we're still trying to figure that out. And a big one is number 25, Florida State. They host Pittsburgh. Now, this one's very interesting because Florida State was just really high in the country. I believe they peaked at number 8, but then they lost to Virginia on the road in double overtime. And then they lost to Miami in a game that wasn't relatively close, and then they almost came back in the fourth, but it still felt out of reach. It felt more like garbage time scorings. But I think Florida State is going to be able to get on track this week. I think they just got caught looking ahead in that Virginia game to Miami, who is a really great team. Miami's really good. So I think they're going to get on track at home against Pittsburgh 33-20. Then we had number 8, Alabama, going on the road at number 14, Missouri. Now, this one's really interesting because Alabama's actually favored going on the road. I'm not entirely sure how much I buy that. This is very interesting because Missouri is one of the few undefeated SEC teams left, but they don't have any key marquee wins, which this would certainly be one of them. If Missouri were to win this game, that would be so huge for their resume and just their impact in the SEC this season overall. So huge for them because at this point, their best wins are South Carolina, that had already been embarrassed by Vanderbilt, and then Kansas, who is okay in the Big 12, but not top 25 type levels. This would be huge for them if they were able to get it at home. And honestly, Alabama looks really good. Everything with Kalen DeBoer, they really look solid, but I don't know. Going into Missouri, I think that's just going to be really tricky. And if they end up proving me wrong, I mean, that's great. I don't hold too much of a grudge against Alabama, except that they continuously win in college football. That's a little bothersome, kind of like seeing the Patriots do good again. Just one of those deals, but I don't have an actual grudge against them. I really like their coach, Kalen DeBoer. Tyson Simpson's playing better. Ryan Williams is a great athlete. But I feel like this is kind of a trap game for them going on the road at Missouri. And it's not necessarily a trap game because Missouri is really good. So I take Missouri 33-30. Would definitely not be surprised if Alabama won. In fact, that's very possible. But Missouri's at home. I feel like there's a lot going for Missouri in this one. That's what I'm going to say. And they have blueprints to watch from Florida State, but that didn't work for Vanderbilt or Georgia. So I think there's a lot of film that Missouri can watch. And also Alabama is a lot more battle-tested, but also they're kind of more withered. And you definitely say that maybe Missouri is the fresher team. Regardless, I think this is going to be a really exciting matchup in the SEC, but I do take Missouri 33-30. Then we have the big noon Saturday game. We have number 1 Ohio State going on the road at number 17 Illinois. Now, this one's really interesting. I mean, Illinois probably shouldn't be ranked, to be honest. They got embarrassed by an incredible amount of points against Indiana, who is also having a huge game this week that we will get to. So Ohio State, this is really interesting. And I think Ohio State is solid. I think they're one of the better teams in the country, obviously. I mean, they definitely have contention for that number 1 spot. And if you say they're the number 1, that might be true. I have them a little behind Miami, but still, they're definitely up there. They're the reigning national champions. You got to give them that kind of respect. Illinois, on the other hand, they haven't done too much. They did beat USC and Duke. Those are their best wins. And they got embarrassed by Indiana. And I have to think Ohio State's better than Indiana, right? But Illinois is hosting. But I like Ohio State here big. I think it's possible that Illinois puts up a fight in the way they were able to respond against USC. But Ohio State's too good. They're a lot better than USC. They're not going to let Illinois do a lot of things they did in that game. And Ohio State's going to win this one pretty handily. I think I got them 41-27. That might even be underselling it, but I'm just not sure. Illinois is hosting it, and they are better in terms of healthiness. So I think it's very possible that they make it a fairly decent game, but I still take Ohio State in that one. Wouldn't be surprised if they won by even more. Then we had Washington State going on the road at number 4, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is really impressive. Lane Kiffin, everything that the Ole Miss Rebels are doing. Very impressive, and Washington State, of course, being one of the teams that got left behind in the Pac-12, and Washington State's not having that great of a year. They've lost a lot, and that's not going to stop today, unfortunately. I mean, you're playing the number 4 team in the country. What did you expect in this type of game? And obviously they weren't at that point yet, so sucks for Washington State, but Ole Miss is going to win this one extremely handedly. Maybe I'm going a little too high, but 51-10 sounds about right to me. Ole Miss is really good, and Washington State is not. That's kind of all you really need to know about this game. Ole Miss is really good. Washington State is not. Ole Miss is going to win big. Then we had NC State going on the road at number 16 Notre Dame. Now, this one's really interesting. NC State, of course, is Virginia's only loss. And what has Virginia done since losing to them? Well, they beat Florida State. They beat Louisville on the road. Both overtime games, by the way. So NC State isn't terrible. So this is very interesting. Even though you wouldn't say this is like a marquee quality win for Notre Dame, would still be huge for them to get it. And definitely they can't lose this game, by the way. Notre Dame is really on watch list every single week because they can't lose. If they lose any of these games following this schedule, the rest of the season, they're kind of out. And C.J. Carr, he's had a lot of development throughout the year, and they still have Jeremiah Love, who's an exceptional player. An exceptional player. Jeremiah Love is great, and they're not going to have any problems against the NC State Wolfpack. They're going to win pretty handedly, I think. It's going to be 38-24. Then we had number 22 Iowa State going on the road at Colorado. Now, this one is pretty interesting as well. I could see Colorado making this one a game like they did when BYU traveled to them, and this is similar to that because Iowa State really shouldn't be ranked. They really shouldn't. And that loss against Cincinnati, why is Cincinnati not ranked? And they are. It's kind of really silly because they're giving them credit for that Kansas State win at the very beginning of the year, which I get, but Kansas State isn't who we thought they were. So it's just tough to rank, and honestly, Colorado is fairly decent, and Deion Sanders is having some trouble with his health, so hopefully he's okay, and he's had another surgery and all of his blood clots, so prayers with him. Very, very sucky situation, and hopefully he gets better, but I don't know. For some reason, I feel like that's really going to motivate this Buffs team, and I think they're going to take out the Cyclones. Maybe that's a hot take, but I don't care. I think the Buffs are going to win 24-20, and yeah, like I said, maybe that's a hot take, but you know what? For some reason, I'm feeling Colorado. I take them there. Then we had a battle of the Techs. We had Virginia Tech going on the road at number 13, Georgia Tech. Virginia Tech, they've already fired their coach a long time ago. Not a great season for them. Georgia Tech's doing really good. And I really feel like they need to respond from that Wake Forest loss. They really needed to use that as a wake-up call and wake up because they cannot do that against these inferior opponents. And especially they're at home, they're really going to clean it up, and they're really going to polish off those mistakes, and we're not going to see many. Georgia Tech's going to be fine going out, and this is not going to be an issue. I'm sorry. It's going to be 35-10. Georgia Tech is going to crush their Tech rival in Virginia Tech. Then we had number 6 Oklahoma going on the road at Texas, and this is what we thought would have been a ranked Red River shootout, but unfortunately it is not. Texas is not who we thought they were. All of a sudden, they're unranked going into this one. Now, what's really interesting about this is not only Texas's fall off, that's very surprising and very interesting, but John Mateer, the quarterback for Oklahoma, still very unclear if he plays because we've been seeing a lot of reports where maybe he will. There's been people saying that he will. There was a guy at Chipotle that said he talked to John Mateer, and John Mateer said that he was going to play. So very interesting in how that's all kind of formulated. If John Mateer plays, it's going to be really interesting for the Sooners. But honestly, I feel like I can see Oklahoma finding a way to win against this Texas team with or without him, especially since it's a neutral site game. Oklahoma, I think, will win, honestly. I can't put any stock in Texas. How are you supposed to make me feel good about Texas? They haven't looked good against a Power 5 opponent. They haven't even looked good against teams like UTEP or even San Jose State, if you really want to say it. The only team that they really looked great against was Sam Houston, but, come on. We're not going to pretend like that's overly impressive, right? So I take Oklahoma on the road, but very hesitantly. I think I take them 39-36. This one could be very interesting, and because it's a rivalry game, and I'm really hoping it's a shootout, I probably put the score too high. Yeah, I definitely did. Yeah, let's change that. Let's go 27-24 Oklahoma. Yeah, that sounds better. But I take Oklahoma in Red River. Then we have what's looking to be the game of the week. We had number 7 Indiana going on the road at number 3 Oregon. Now, this one is very interesting for a lot of reasons. Now, Indiana has looked very promising against teams like Illinois, but of course Illinois maybe isn't as good as we thought, but they did beat USC. And then Oregon, similar thing, where it's like they had that great double overtime win over Penn State, but it's like, well, maybe Penn State's not as good as we thought with them losing to UCLA. Very stunning loss by Penn State. So this one, it is peculiar, and it's hard to pick because you wonder how real those rankings are next to them. I still think both of them are good teams, and if you heard what I said about them in my top 25 video, I still feel pretty good about both of these teams and feel like to demean them for those losses or for the teams that they beat, losing after is kind of awkward, and especially with teams like Illinois, it's like they look weird and they look odd because of what Indiana did to them, and just in that game, that's why it was so impressive for them. So honestly, this one's interesting, but Oregon's at home. If Indiana plays their best ball at home, we saw Indiana go into Niall Kinnick Stadium of the Iowa Hawkeyes and really struggled and made some plays in the fourth quarter late, but barely were able to win. If this was at Hoosier Stadium, like if this was at Bloomington, I would feel better about Indiana, but I can't pick them in Eugene. I'm sorry, I like Indiana a lot, but I can't pick them in Eugene. I think that's the biggest part of this, is that they're at Oregon. I can't say Indiana goes in there on the road in Eugene and gets it done. I can't. So I got Oregon 30-24. Then this is one of the more easier ones to make. We had Arkansas on the road at number 12, Tennessee. Tennessee's going to blow the doors off of Arkansas. Arkansas looked promising at first with close losses to Ole Miss and Memphis until they fully got blown out against Notre Dame. Coach is fired. Everything's bad in Arkansas. What else is new? Tennessee's going to win this very, very handedly. Probably something like 44 to, I'll give them 13. Tennessee's going to win 44-13 over Arkansas. Then we had Florida going on the road at number 5, Texas A&M. Now this one is going to be really interesting. Now Florida, of course, just knocked off Texas, who was the preseason number 1 team. Of course, they're far from that now, but Florida was still a very impressive win in the Swamp. But honestly, I don't think they're going to have the same type of luck here. Texas A&M's defense looks so great, especially at home. Now, in their wins that are really impressive, they went on the road at Notre Dame, and that's when their defense gave up 40 points. They were at home against Auburn, limited them to 3 points most of the game, and ended up being 10 at the final score. They held Mississippi State to 9 points the whole game. Texas A&M's really good. Texas A&M really is, and especially their defense, and especially at home, and Florida plays their best ball at home. As Florida won in the Swamp, but they've lost at LSU. Like Florida, and they lost at Miami, I believe. They went on the road for that one. Either way, I don't think they're going to win this one on the road at Texas A&M. It's just too big of a feat. I'm sorry, Texas A&M's too good. So Texas A&M is going to win this one semi-handedly. Not crazy, but I think they're going to win it 34-21. Then we had Kansas going on the road at number 9, Texas Tech. Texas Tech looks really great, and they look like the runaway favorite in the Big 12. I'd be surprised if many teams are able to rival Texas Tech right now. Texas Tech looks really great, and I don't think Kansas is going to be able to rival them too much. Now, Kansas did play decently solid against Missouri, but I'd say number 9 is still too low of a ranking for Texas Tech. They're really good. They swallow every team they play, and now they get Kansas at home. It's very good chance that this is ugly, but it's not like crazy ugly, but they do it just enough to make it look like you didn't really stand a chance. So Texas Tech's got this one 31-17. Then we had number 15, Michigan, going on the road at USC, and USC was just ranked. Jordan Mailata is a great QB, Lincoln Riley, of course, their system. They were starting to kind of run the ball better. We really thought USC was maybe starting to kind of figure things out, but then they really screwed the pooch there against Illinois on the road, and I get it, it's on the road, but Illinois had just embarrassed themselves so much the week prior, so it looked like USC was going to have an easier time in that game, but that wasn't the case. Illinois was able to give USC a tough time, and despite USC crawling back and eventually taking the lead, Illinois gets a field goal late and ends up beating USC. Now this one's interesting because they are hosting, and Michigan hasn't looked great on the road overall, but you know what? They improved a lot since that Oklahoma game, especially Bryce Underwood, because then when they went on the road against Nebraska and were able to find a way to win, and even though certain mistakes didn't go their way, he kept poise and was still able to lead his team to a victory. And I think that game and the way they played is going to be so evident, and it's really going to culminate into this victory, I think. I think that's what's going to happen, and I think Michigan is going to win 29-24. Then we had number 10, Georgia, going on the road at Auburn. Now, this one's really interesting because if you hadn't heard, Auburn, the Auburn staff, so many years ago in the 80s, had sprayed water hoses at Georgia fans, including Gunnar Stockton's grandfather, who is now the current starting quarterback for Georgia. So that's a really interesting snippet, and it just shows how deep these SEC rivalries really go, and it's just kind of funny. And you know what, Georgia, I don't know, and it's like the article that I saw about it said, and they haven't forgotten. It's like, geez, it really runs deep in the SEC. So Georgia's going to obliterate them. And Auburn, I think, is still solid, and I like Jackson Arnold, but this is just tough. And when you're in the SEC, this is what kind of happens. The bigger teams end up swallowing up the smaller teams, and I love Auburn, and I do think They deserved the top 25 spot that they had while they had it, but it really is just a tough go in this SEC gauntlet. So Georgia's going to win this one 34-21. Then South Carolina, speaking of SEC gauntlet, South Carolina has a horrible stretch coming up, and they're going on the road at number 11, LSU. I think 11's probably too high for LSU, but it's whatever. Honestly, South Carolina has a great QB in Lenore Sellers. He's great. But overall, I don't know how they're going to perform. And they're going on the road at LSU, who has looked suspect, but they did play pretty good against Ole Miss, but they didn't play great against Louisiana Tech or Florida. They had to get 5 interceptions and only won by 10. They couldn't do anything on offense. So, oddly enough, give me the Gamecocks. This might be a dumb cake. I don't care. I'm taking the Gamecocks. Sure. I'll take the Gamecocks 37-34. Then we had number 18 BYU going on the road at Arizona, and Arizona looked pretty solid, but then they got obliterated by Iowa State, and then Iowa State ended up subsequently getting embarrassed by Cincinnati, so maybe Arizona's still not that great. I like BYU in this, though. They responded great against West Virginia after they were too close against Colorado the previous week. So I do like BYU here, and I think they will win this one fairly decently, not crazy. I think it's going to be like 24-17. BYU takes this one on the road at Arizona. Then we had number 21 Arizona State going on the road at the Utes of Utah. Now this one's really interesting. Utes of Utah also fell out of the top 25 after they got kind of embarrassed against Texas Tech, but turns out Texas Tech's actually just really good. So I don't really flack Utah for that too much, but their offensive line definitely didn't do great in that really battle against Texas Tech, but it ended up not really being a battle. Texas Tech really dominated the line of scrimmage, which really felt like that was a key going into it. So Utah's definitely going to have to play a lot better in this one against Arizona State, and you know what? I think they will. I think Utah's going to play great, and Arizona State going on the road. Kenny Dillingham, Sam Levitt, and I believe it's going to rain. It's very possible that it will rain, it looks like, so it's going to be really interesting, and I feel like Utah is built to win this game. They're hosting. I feel like they're going to get enough bounces to beat Arizona State. In an oddly defensive game, I think they're going to pull it out 20-17. I got Utah at home over number 21 Arizona State. All right, now it's time for the buzzsaw, and last week's was really impressive. I went 26-3. I was honestly really surprised by my performance, so we're going to try to replicate that as much as we can. So we'll see how well we do this week. So as we get into this, UCLA going on the road at Michigan State. Honestly, just because of what UCLA did last week, I can't pick against them. Got to go UCLA there. Stanford on the road at SMU. I'll pick Southern Methodist again. UCF on the road at Cincinnati. Cincinnati should be ranked. Give me the Bearcats. Houston on the road, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is so rough after Mike Gundy left, but he was rough when he was there. Give me Houston. Louisiana on the road at James Madison. Well, this is tricky. Do I pick the guy who wrote the Constitution or Cajun fries? Very interesting, but you know what? Give me the Cajun fries. Give me Louisiana. Then Charlotte on the road at Army. This is interesting. Would an Army guy beat a minor? I reckon he would. So give me the Army guys. Then Miami, Ohio going on the road at Akron. This is interesting. I think I go Akron. Sure, I'll take Akron. Holy Toledo against Bowling Green. This is interesting as well, but give me Toledo. And then Northern Illinois going on the road at Eastern Michigan. I'll take Northern Illinois. They beat Notre Dame last year in a huge upset, so for that reason, they're going to beat Eastern Michigan. Right. Then we had Massachusetts going on the road at Kent State. Honestly, Massachusetts is just so bad. Give me Kent State in that one. Then we had Northwestern against Penn State. Honestly, crazy that this is not a ranked matchup, or at least for Penn State. Really funny. Penn State's going to win, but honestly, this is just really funny that this is on the buzzsaw now because Penn State has really fallen off. Then Nebraska at Maryland. I'll take Nebraska there. Wake Forest on the road at Oregon State. Oregon State is bad. Give me Wake Forest. Then TCU on the road at Kansas State. Well, it's a battle of the Big 12 purples, but I think TCU is the better purple this year. Got to go them. Then Air Force on the road at UNLV. UNLV looks great. In the Mountain West, give me UNLV. Then Appalachian State going on the road at Georgia State. Georgia State looked rough against James Madison. Give me App State. Old Dominion going on the road at Marshall. Old Dominion is great. Them and Iowa were the only teams that really give Indiana trouble. Give me Old Dominion. Ball State on the road at Western Michigan. Once again, I know someone who goes to Ball State, and that's why they're beating Western Michigan. Then Navy's going on the road at Temple. And honestly, no, I can't. I go Navy here. Then UAB on the road at Florida Atlantic. I picked against Florida Atlantic. Didn't go well. One of the only ones I missed on. And UAB, I picked them over Army and was wrong. I feel like for that reason, my instinct is saying, no, Florida Atlantic is going to beat UAB. Then we had San Jose State going on the road at Wyoming. Give me San Jose State in that one. Honestly, their logo is pretty cool. It's like the Spartans, but it's like colorful with like blue and yellow. Sure, heck yeah. San Jose State's going to beat Wyoming. Then we had UL Monroe going on the road at Coastal Carolina. I'd love to pick Coastal Carolina, as I've said for so many weeks, actually. Their teal field is really cool, but they're just not good. Give me UL Monroe. Then we got Purdue going on the road at Minnesota, and I think Minnesota's going to win. Purdue's just really bad. Clemson going on the road at Boston College. Clemson's also not that great. Yeah, they blew out North Carolina, but North Carolina looks really bad. So give me Boston College. Rice on the road at UTSA. Now, give me Rice in this one. Then, Troy going on the road at Texas State. This is an odd one. I'm taking Texas State, though. New Mexico at Boise State, New Mexico. I got to go New Mexico there. The way they blew out UCLA, and you see what UCLA just did. I really do like New Mexico, and I think they're going to win that one. Then San Diego State going on the road at Nevada. San Diego State's uniforms. It's hard to describe them, but they're so cool, and all the patterns and stuff. You can't pick against San Diego State. Their uniforms are far too cool to pick against them. So I'm going San Diego State there. Then Utah State on the road at Hawaii. For no reason, the Rainbow Warriors are going to beat Utah State. It's not happening, but I'm picking the Rainbow Warriors of Hawaii to win that one. So that's going to do the buzzsaw for Week 7. Well, that's going to do it for another prediction video of the Ben Buzz. Appreciate everyone tuning in, and I don't know if you could kind of notice, but my voice is kind of a little off. Not great in terms of health, nothing really too concerning, just kind of my voice is a little different, so hopefully not that different. I was really hoping that the quality would still be okay, so I'm hoping that it's still decently fine, tried to overcome it, but honestly, I'm just really excited for a lot of college football games that we have this weekend, and we really have a great slate, and we're even going to have a better slate the week after. It's going to be really an interesting couple of weeks of college football. College football is just so great, and every week feels like it's so awesome, and that's what I love about this sport, is that week after week it feels so great, and the atmospheres and the upsets, everything. We talk about it every week, but college football deserves to be talked about every week because it's so incredible, and I really enjoy covering it. So yeah, I really enjoy talking about college football in this way, and I'm really excited for the rest of the season. So I really appreciate everyone who tuned in, and we'll really have to see how these games end up going because they're so interesting, and a lot of these picks we'll have to end up seeing if any of them hold up. But I'm really excited for another great Saturday of college football, as we've had so many, and we're going to have so many more this season. This is the Ben Buzz starring Benny King, and thanks for tuning in.